Baltimore Ravens turned a pretty win ugly in week 3 against the Dallas Cowboys. They escaped, but there's a lot to dive into. We talk about the near collapse Baltimore endured, how they got there in the first place, and a lot more. All that coming up on an instant reaction postgame edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here today or tonight, making Locked On Ravens your first listen of the day. Free and available for you all podcasting platforms, video form on YouTube where you can like and subscribe, audio form wherever you get your shows. You can follow along. We bring you 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Ravens get their first win of 2024, although it certainly was not the prettiest we've ever seen, at least not for a full 4 quarters. And guess what? If you didn't know, that's how long these games are. They're 4 quarters, but the Ravens only played 3 of them. Yet again, Baltimore outscored 19-0 in the 4th quarter. It's this thing where I would have loved to have talked about it in the way that, look, they dominated on the ground, Baltimore did. They found their identity. They were slinging the ball around. Baltimore's defense was turning up the pressure. But then it all just came crumbling down in the 4th quarter. So we have a lot to talk about today. Appreciate everybody for being here. As always, we do these live instant reaction episodes after every single Ravens game. Win, lose, pretty, ugly, whatever it may be. We are here for you there. And look, I think the sense of the fan base right now, and certainly how I'm feeling, is this is a game that they easily should have had. It should not have come down to this. It should not have gotten as ugly as it did. And quite frankly, the Cowboys could have easily tied this game. I thought it was terrible coaching on Mike McCarthy's part to go for 2 early, which put them in a pigeonhole. And then all of a sudden you miss 2 2-point conversions. You leave 4 points on the board. And honestly, the Cowboys could have had a much easier path to tying this game, but Mike McCarthy decided against it. I thought that was poor coaching, so the Ravens get a break there. But just utter and pure collapse from Baltimore. You know, there were some penalties that maybe weren't penalties. There were other penalties that were penalties. It's just, look, this team has to be better. They have to be better. We have to see them be the team that they were in these first 3 quarters. They exploited Dallas's weaknesses. They were a team that was able to go out there and play their game. Dallas didn't dictate the game flow in the first 3 quarters. The Ravens did. But, Cameron, I see you right here with this comment. They got too conservative in the 4th quarter, and that is something we have talked about ever since Todd Monken came in here, which is they either start really fast and then they fall off a cliff at the end, or they start really slow and they come together and they have a great day. This was the first one where they were scorching, and then the offense just got complacent. And Lamar Jackson, we'll talk about this a little more tomorrow, he sent a clear message to John Harbaugh. So essentially said that felt like they should have kept their foot on the gas. We'll get into those comments a little more on tomorrow's show because I don't have the full quote in front of me right now, but I will get that if I can. It was on the Fox broadcast after the game. But Lamar Jackson, actually, we're just getting it here. He interjected in Harbaugh's news conference to shout out Daniel Falele's performance. So, hey, look, Lamar being a leader there, and Lamar is, but Lamar, it's unfair to him to ask him to put on the Superman cape here. It's unfair to Lamar to make him do all this and have John Harbaugh and all the, and look, it's not any, like, we can talk. There's a lot of blame to go around, right? And it's a win that we're talking about as a loss. When, look, there were a lot of good things this Ravens team did. I was impressed with a lot of things. We're going to talk about that. But it's kind of like this, just a bit outside, kind of says it perfectly. I'll take the W, but damn, man. Like, could they have made it a little easier? Could they have made it a little easier on the heart for everybody? So, man, it's brutal. You know, wins like this, you would have hoped that they could have just put the game away. But at the end of the day, they didn't. And John Harbaugh, talked about the Ravens and their offensive line, why they didn't rotate anybody in. He said, quote, "I was pleased. What made me stick with them was because they were doing so well running the ball, pass protection. They were doing a really good job of blocking. It took care of their pass rushers, especially Micah. So I just felt like there was no reason to make a change there." The offensive line, they had their issues, but I honestly was fine with the way the offensive line played. Right? I was fine with the way the offensive line played. Certainly some mistakes, certainly some things to improve on. But again, if we're talking about like things on the list here, that wasn't necessarily the reason why, the Ravens were in the pickle they were in. Now, to an extent it was, right? I'm not absolving them of all blame, but man, it is crazy. And I see a couple of people have talked about it. I see Anthony's comment here, though. The pass defense is a problem. They're ranked 32nd, not happy with the finish. Nobody should be. Nobody should be. I'm with you, Anthony. And if we pull up the stats here quickly, first of all, I mentioned it at the top. The Ravens were outscored in the fourth quarter, 19-0. And there were other areas of that where, hey, they could have scored, but Justin Tucker, I think, to me, concern for Justin Tucker is pretty high for me right now. And I think it is for a lot of people. It's, misses a 46-yarder inside of 50. 50 plus is one thing, still okay, not great. Inside 50, it's a mental thing for Tuck right now. It has to be. And look, I'll pull up this graphic. I don't know where the heck my background went. Oh, whoa, look at this. Hold on. What just happened? I wanted to pull this up as a graphic, but it's pulling it up as my background. Okay. Well, we're going to delete that for a second and make sure we get that back in order. But regardless, one thing that stood out to me was the penalties for the Ravens. Ravens, after week 2, we saw that, had 11 penalties for 109 yards. And everybody's saying, well, look, things have to get better, right? They have to get better. The Ravens had 13 penalties in this game. Now, not all of them were penalties, right? That Odafe Owe roughing the passer was as soft of a call as I've seen this year from Baltimore. But again, it's not all 13 penalties were not penalties. There were penalties that were the right call. And while certain penalties had a bigger aspect and a bigger bearing on the game, Baltimore has to clean that up. Baltimore has to clean it up. That's a big part of it too. So here's the graphic. Look at this. Here we go. 28-25, the Ravens win. They escape. And see, I thought Brandon Aubrey was going to come out there and kick an 80-yard field goal to tie the game if the Ravens gave the ball away. It was that kind of thing. The momentum for Baltimore was just plummeting. It was plummeting throughout the entire game. And that's something you just cannot have. You can't have it because you go 3 quarters and then it just plummets throughout that entire fourth quarter. The fourth quarter is like a game in itself. That's what I meant there. The fourth quarter, it's like an entire game in itself. You have to be able to keep that momentum. Again, a lot of positive things the Ravens did in this game, but it just feels like it's all overshadowed by what we saw in the fourth quarter. And for a Dallas team that really had no momentum, CeeDee Lamb didn't have a good game, which, again, credit to Baltimore's defense for kind of making that happen. But the secondary could be a point of conversation. I thought Ardarius Washington played well. I thought that there were other areas that, the Ravens did a good job in. But, Dak didn't really get it was a way where he was pressured, but the Ravens, they didn't turn into sacks the way that they did last week, I guess I would say here. They still had a decent amount, still 3 sacks. Kyle Van Noy just balling out, right? Absolutely balling out for this team. But they have to be better in multiple different ways to close out and finish these games. We could be easily talking about a 38-19 Ravens win, but there was just that little sliver of momentum that Dallas caught, and then they caught on more, then more, then more, then more. And then garbage time suddenly isn't garbage time anymore. Garbage time is, we're playing for the game. I don't think the ESPN graphic of the win percentage. Oh, here we go. The Ravens had, all right. No, where is it? Fourth quarter. Here we go. In the fourth quarter, the Ravens had a 99.1% chance to win. Oh, no, that's actually early third. 99.1% chance to win with 55 seconds to go in the third. 55 seconds to go, the Ravens had a 99.1% chance. Right at the start of the fourth quarter, the Ravens had a 99.1% chance to win this game. And then that number dropped all the way down, didn't go too far, only to like 81.5. But when you have a 99.1% chance to win a game, to get it to the way it did, and look, 2 huge plays by Lamar and Zay Flowers on that first play, and then Lamar obviously taking it on that sweep that a lot of people thought was a reverse, but Lamar kept it, got the first down, game over there. That is what the Ravens needed in that moment, because they didn't do enough of it in that fourth quarter. The offense got conservative. Again, if you've been listening to me on Locked On Ravens every day, you've heard me say I'm not super impressed with Todd Monken's play calling this year. I thought it was great in those first 3 quarters, but we can't keep having games like this. This is not the way a team wins a Super Bowl. And I see you, Money, here. We got to stop taking our foot off the gas pedal we just got. That's not good. Yep, you have to. You can't take your foot off the gas pedal. Got to keep pushing it. This is the worst fourth quarter team in the league. And again, the schedule's not letting up. Good, the Ravens got to win, but it's unfortunate the circumstances we're talking about it in, because this had the shot to really be all right. Ravens are back. They have all this momentum. Dallas took a lot of it away from them. So not the best, but coming up with the second part of the show, we'll continue talking about what happened overall in the game, how the Ravens got to the point that they did, the situation happened in the fourth quarter, and obviously some good in the game as well, because there was, despite the way that it feels right now. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot to dive into on this instant reaction live edition of Locked On Ravens. Don't go anywhere. But first, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. And you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And I love going on FanDuel, seeing everything that they have to offer. We have something a little different for you, though. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5, get a 3-week free trial of an else, and a ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon at a market game. All you need is Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel anytime. So for the Ravens and Cowboys game, if you pick the Ravens to win, it was not easy to get there, but congratulations. Probably won some money over there. Just visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook. We are back. Our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher coming to you after the Ravens pick up an ugly win. A pretty win turned ugly is how I'm describing this one. 28-25 at the final score. Baltimore moves to 1-2, but did not come without the effort to blow in the game late. And we heard John Harbaugh. And I'm trying to find some of the quotes from his press conference, but man, just an ugly win overall. Be sure to like and subscribe here on the YouTube channel. If you're in video form, we bring you 5 days a week of Ravens content, both in video and in audio form as well. If you like these live shows, hit that notification bell so you can be sure to keep up with all that we have to offer there. John Harbaugh said Lamar Jackson was phenomenal. He ended up talking about other aspects as well of, the Ravens and their finishing, or I guess, honestly, lack thereof, right? It was a lack thereof, but Harbaugh said the penalties are a problem. And the thing he said was a lot of things to work on, but I'm proud of the guys to get the victory. I mean, sure, they got the victory. But it feels like, I don't even know what it feels like. I don't even know. How about this? In the chat, if you're live with us, or if you're watching on playback, or even you're listening in audio form, but we'll do this for the live chat here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you feeling in the Ravens after that win? 1 being you're not confident at all, 10 being you are confident. What is your confidence level? Did you feel inspired by what you saw in the first 3 quarters of this game? Or are you more honed in on what happened in the fourth quarter and you're a little panicked about what happened there? It's tough because you can go either way on this one, right? How confident are you in this team? Well, you can't look. They can only play that way so many times and escape that way so many times. They played that way in week 2, and they didn't escape that way. I'm going to go a solid 5. I'm kind of in the middle. I was encouraged by what I saw in the run game. I was encouraged by that, but we do have to take that with a bit of a grain of salt, because Dallas's run defense, and it was as advertised, is just awful, atrocious, terrible. That Dallas defense, and look, I hate to say this because I drafted them in a lot of fantasy leagues and was certainly not doing well in that aspect. I didn't have anybody else to start. But that Dallas defense is overrated. It is. Parsons is a heck of a player. They have a couple really good players on that defense, but they're looked at as a top 3 defense. They can't stop the run. They get blown off the ball. I want to see the Ravens do this for the next 2 weeks outside of this one, right? I want to see them do it. Do it against Buffalo. and then Cincinnati as well. You get 3 straight weeks of consistent rushing like we saw in this game for the most part. But you see 3 weeks of that, and I'm all the way back on the Ravens rushing offense. Now, in terms of their fourth quarter, I'm at a negative 85 million, 80 million. Negative 80 million. I'm not confident whatsoever in this Ravens team in the fourth quarter, because in a game that you thought they had, and that you're thinking, okay, now finally we can get rid of that nonsense. Well, guess what? It wasn't really nonsense, was it? The Ravens kept doing their nonsense. Now, Brian has a good point here. Thought the Ravens did a good job on Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons was all over the place, confused, dazed, looking around. The Ravens had him just wandering around the field, wondering what the heck was going on. And this is part of what I've been saying. I'm going to outline it for you right now. All right, let me do this right here. Something that made the Ravens so successful in this game, when you're looking about what the Ravens need to do moving forward, something that they did in this Dallas game was they established the run and then made Dallas get on their toes about it, and they used play action. They used the option plays on that touchdown, that option between Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. The entire Dallas defense froze when that ball was in the pocket, depending on whether Lamar pulled it or he handed it off to Derrick Henry. The entire defense froze. And when you do something like that, it is almost impossible to stop, because if you're flat-footed as a defender, or you're leaning in one way or the other, if you guess wrong, you're done. You're out of the play. And that entire Dallas defense was out of that play. That's what the Ravens need to spam. I don't care if it's the only thing you run. I don't care if you run different variations of it. If you just run play action, option, handoff, whatever it is, this is what you brought Derrick Henry in to do, which, again, I'm glad that they used the run game the way that they did. The Ravens ran this ball 45 times, 6.1 yards per carry. They dominated Dallas on the ground, and they did what they were supposed to do, because Dallas's run defense is awful. So what do? Your run game is a strength. You go out there and you ground and pound, and you keep the defense on their toes. They had a lot of success running to the left side early in the game. Then we started to see them kind of go to the right side, and, they had some success, but not as much. They go back to the left side. They had success. Just do what's successful. I get that defenses will start to hone in on what you're doing, and you run the same play over and over again. Defenses will start to sell out to stop it. Well, that's the point. The point is to make your offense be so dangerous and so effective that a defense sells out to stop one aspect of it, and you just have easy play over and over and over and over again with something different. If you establish your run game, defense sells out to stop it, work the play action over the top. If that play action works and defenses start to try to stop that, you just run the ball against a light box. That is where this Ravens team has to get better. That is where the play calling has to be able to go and figure things out. And Joe, what's up? Outstreaming Zach. Tell everybody over there to come over here, and then we can all go over there together. How about that? Let's have a friendly competition between Zach and I about that. Tell everybody over there to come over here. We'll see what happens with that. Appreciate you tuning in, Joe. But yeah, again, Baltimore here. Look, happy they got the win, right? A win is a win. It's just the situation that ended up happening, I guess, in the fourth quarter is where the disappointment is for a lot of people. Where, look, I'm happy as heck the Ravens are 1-2 right now. I'm glad they got that win. Now, the record, not happy they're 1-2. The fact that they are 1-2 instead of 0-3, that's what it is. But they did this playing Ravens football. This is their identity. For people who haven't looked at the box score, how many passes did Lamar Jackson throw today? I'll give 5 seconds, then I'll answer. If you're just thinking about it in your head right now, how many passes did Lamar throw today? He threw 15 passes. 15. And I had this whole thing. Look, I was prepared for the Ravens to win this game. And what I was going to say is Lamar had 13 at the time. And I said, this is what the Ravens do. Lamar Jackson can throw 13, 15, 17 passes, and the Ravens can still win by 20 plus or 30 plus. Now, obviously, that is far from what happened in this game, but the Ravens don't have to have Lamar go air it out and go 30 of 38 in a game or 31 of 40 in a game. He can do this. He can be effective as a passer. He averaged 12.1 yards per attempt. That's a good number. They were pushing the ball down the field. He had 139.4 rating. That's great. So he was efficient. He was efficient as a quarterback. And sure, Sammy, well, we can talk about, and I appreciate you, Judah, for agreeing with me on that. But Sammy's saying Lamar slowed down in the fourth. The entire offense, the entire team, everybody slowed down, right? Lamar, Harbaugh, Monken, or defense, offense, everybody slowed down in that fourth quarter. But Sammy, I hear you. Yep, 12 yards per attempt. That's the key for this. Push the ball down the field when possible, and part of when it's possible is when you are able as an offense to establish your ground game so dominantly that when just the sheer thought of you handing the ball off makes defenses go crazy, makes defenders want to sneak up and get the first step so they can have any little advantage they can. And then you pull that ball back if you're Lamar Jackson, and you have Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, who, both those guys weren't really involved today, but Zay, Bateman, anybody, you have those guys streaking down the sideline, open for a medium to big gain. That is how you do it. That is how you do it. And certainly, John, I hear you. Look, a 56-yard catch and run is going to help you in the yards per attempt category, but we talk about stats, and that's what the stats say. So we'll be able to kind of say, hey, you know what? 12.1 yards per attempt on 15 attempts. It's a good number. It's a matter of what happened on the field. So Ravens get a win. But again, we're here talking about the fourth quarter collapse. And I will say this right now. If the Ravens had blown that game, that's a fireable thing for John Harbaugh. If the Ravens blow that game, that's fireable. Can't have 2 weeks of that back-to-back, especially one as egregious as this, where the Ravens were up in this game by a ton of points. A ton of points. And you couldn't blow a game like that. There was no way that you could. There was no way. When you enter the fourth quarter here, and where is it? You're up 28-6 at the start of the fourth quarter. You're up 28-6 with 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and this game ends the way it did. If that had gone the other way, there would have been a whole lot more conversation we'd be having about that aspect of things. Coming up in the final part of the show, though, still a ton to talk about. We'll talk more about the offense, about the defense, things to look out for, and what comes next for this Ravens team after a win where they showed their strengths, but another near collapse in the fourth quarter. Stay tuned. A ton to get to on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. So one Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on PrizePicks every week in September. That's right, only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on PrizePicks because it's gone when September ends. And PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. So for this Ravens game, hey, you know what? If you pick the more on Nelson Aguilar receiving yards, you are probably living large right now over on PrizePicks with that 56-yard catch. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. We return Locked On Ravens, our final segment here on this instant reaction post-game episode. Kevin Oestreicher here after the Ravens escape Dallas in a game they shouldn't have really needed to escape in. They win 28-25 over the Cowboys, improve their record to 1-2, and now face another tough test in the Buffalo Bills coming up on Sunday Night Football next week. The Ravens will have to lean into their identity again on the ground. I mean, 100% they're going to have to. But in this game, again, Lamar only throws 15 passes, so it's not like there was a ton to go around. Rashod Bateman, shout out to Rashod Bateman, ended up having 3 catches, was tied for he and Zay Flowers, both 3 receptions, and Rashod Bateman ended up outgating Zay Flowers. It's kind of rare. 3 for 28 for Rashod Bateman in this game. Derrick Henry, I mean, some of the yards per catch averages in this game are nuts. Nelson Aguilar averaged 56 yards per catch. Charlie Kolar averaged 30 yards per catch. Derrick Henry averaged 23 yards per catch. Obviously, that's all coming on 1 reception. But the Ravens ran good screenplays in this game. The Ravens did a lot of things in that first through third quarters on offense that you hoped that they would. But in the fourth quarter, the offense just slowed up. And Brianna, I appreciate you bringing this up because, again, it helps when people put stats in the chat for me here as I'm moving a million miles a minute. Lamar, 3 pass attempts in the second half. I did not realize it was that low. That's part of it here where the Ravens offense was either going 3 and out. They weren't able to do things like that. But it is, in this day and age, you don't really hear about quarterbacks throwing what it is. And Brown, with more context here, 24 times in the second half they ran the ball, 0 points. Again, Baltimore getting outscored 19-0 in the fourth quarter. Derrick Henry has 25 carries for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm actually curious to see because I mistakenly didn't make the full screen graphic, but I made the mobile graphic. I'm curious to see how this looks on the screen. I made a stat graphic for him, but I forgot to do it the other way. It's gonna look weird, but I'm gonna do it anyway, just because it's probably gonna be funny. Here we go. It comes up and I'm just, hold on. Hey, hello. There you go. Where is he? There he is. Nope, other way. There he is, right there. Derrick Henry, 25 carries, 151 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I'm just trying to peek my way in here. So that's why we do the full screen graphics. But, yeah, this team is going to have to continue to ride Derrick Henry in so many ways, right? On the ground, establish that. Do it. That's what it is. We haven't even talked about the defense mostly today. And Brian asking, man, Kyle Van Noy, absolute dog. Absolute dog. He's a guy that, look, 2 fractures, the Fox broadcast said, in his face, the orbital bone. He goes out there, 2 more sacks for Kyle Van Noy. Kyle Hamilton looked all the way back in that first through third quarter. He had 12 tackles. Roquan has not looked like Roquan recently. He just seems a little out of shape, in my opinion. It feels like Roquan just hasn't been that Roquan type guy. But, you hope that he can recover. I mean, look, he's a heck of a player. It's just, early in the season that's something that just has to get worked out on. You have other guys. Again, tough day for Nate Wiggins. Obviously, great play on that CeeDee Lamb forced fumble. Honestly, that might have won the Ravens the game, if we're being honest. But Nate Wiggins, have to give him all the credit in the world for that play, because if the Cowboys score a touchdown there or even kick a field goal, we're going to overtime in the world of, unparalleled, parallel universes. But heck of a play by Nate Wiggins, but definitely ran up and down the field a little bit and had a tough cover day overall. Other than that, Marlon made a couple of nice pass breakups, but the secondary still is a concern. I mean, Dak finishes this game with 379 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. He wasn't even that good in the game. Like, obviously late he gained momentum, but I mean, he was throwing balls behind receivers and had multiple plays where there could have been easy first downs, easy big gains, and Dak just didn't make the right throw. Ravens run defense, 3.2 yards per carry allowed to Dallas. Dallas really couldn't get anything going on the ground. Jake Ferguson kind of did his thing today. Jalen Tolbert had a touchdown, obviously. So, again, it's just the run defense looks good. There's no concern with me for that run defense. But the pass defense definitely needs to shape up, especially because that fourth quarter, Dallas was scoring on every possession. In fact, I think they did score on every possession, if I'm not mistaken, in that fourth quarter. Touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess technically that drive that started in the third quarter ended up not being like that, ended up bleeding into the fourth quarter. But every possession, they got the ball back in the fourth quarter. That's 3 possessions, 3 touchdowns. So that's exactly what that is there. I see Matt talking about, can we discuss Justin Tucker? Yeah, it's definitely a concern. It's certainly an issue with this Ravens team and, what they have. I mean, Tucker, look, he's the best of all time, but the fact that he missed from inside 50 today, that's a concern. It's super mental, I feel like, with Justin Tucker. It seems like he's in his head, misses wide left again. And, he's certainly favoring that side. But he hasn't played well this season. He's been a liability. for the Ravens this season. Obviously, that can change with Tucker's pedigree, but, we can call it like it is here. That's what we do on Locked On Ravens. And, it seemed like the opposite was kind of true for me today, where when Brandon Aubrey came out there for Dallas, every time I'm like, well, this is going in. I don't care how far he kicks it. Every time Aubrey's kicks are going in. And for Tucker, even the extra points, I was like, yeah, I think it's going to go in, but is it going to go in? So, that's kind of like the feeling. And look, we haven't really experienced that with Justin Tucker ever before. Ravens, people who cover the team, watch the team, fans, right? Everybody, all of us. We haven't experienced this ever with him. Never. In a decade plus with Justin Tucker. And it's a new feeling, a new old feeling, I guess, that nobody's really used to. And that's tough. So Tucker's certainly a concern point. You hope he can get it back on track, but I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't concerned about him, because they need him this season for sure. Laura, appreciate you. Yeah, he's not. And look, maybe he can get it back on track. I'm not giving up on Justin Tucker, but we can call it like it is and say that it's definitely a concern point. If it doesn't get better in these next couple of weeks, I think we can all kind of call it like it is. And appreciate you, Laura, checking in. I'm going to head over there in a minute or two. But, yeah, it's tough. And again, I'm trying to see if we can get a little friendly competition with Zach, bringing everybody over here to Locked On Ravens and then going back over there after that. So, yep. And then we can also talk about Mark Andrews. I see a lot is love talking about Mark Andrews, because we talked about with Lamar not throwing a bunch of passes, obviously wasn't a ton to go around Mark Andrews. And again, I had him in a bunch of fantasy leagues. One target, no catches. One target, no catches in this game for Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely, one target, one catch for him. Zay, 3 for 20. Justice Hill, 2 for 21. They just need to get into a rhythm for 4 quarters. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what everybody says. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Hey, what did I just say? I'll say it over and over and over and over again. If something's not broken, why would you fix it? Right? And again, that's establishing play action, ground and pound. We saw that one play, and I don't know if anybody knows what I'm talking about, but I'm going to describe it for you. It was earlier in the game when the Cowboys challenged that Lamar Jackson first down when he scrambled, or, it was a design run play out to the right side. They had like 6 blockers in front of Lamar Jackson. And there were like 3 defenders out there. Like, those are the types of plays that you have to be able to go out there and execute more consistently and just have that as a part of your offense. So just to kind of round out, we'll just go team stats quickly to round out this episode. And then again, we'll be back here 6 a.m. tomorrow talking about Lamar Jackson's very clear and strong message to John Harbaugh. The Cowboys went 7 of 13 on third down. It's better than 50% on third down. So you can't have that. Ravens had 456 total yards. Dallas had 412. I don't know the splits. I'm going to try to find those splits in the fourth quarter compared to quarters 1 through 3. Dallas only 51 yards on the ground. Baltimore 274. Dallas 6 penalties for 44 yards. The Ravens 13 for 105. Ravens about 35 minutes of time of possession. In Dallas with about 25 there. Ravens had 16 rushing first downs. Cowboys only had 2. But again, everybody's talking about this win as, well, man, they need to be better in the fourth quarter. And that's exactly what Sean is saying here. Need to be better in the fourth quarter. It was awful. Can't let teams back in the game. You can't. You have all the momentum. Just keep it for yourself. Keep it for yourself. Third down stops is a defense. Third down conversions is an offense. All that. And plus, I see Kenneth here talking about, I know the Zay Flowers onside kick. One that he just whiffed on, obviously redeemed himself with the second one, but then they just go 3 and out again. So just a win for the Ravens. I'll call it that. And a pretty win turned ugly for this Baltimore Ravens team. So many storylines to dive into, and we'll be talking about them all over the place this week on Locked On Ravens. So again, if you like these instant reaction live shows, be sure to like and subscribe in video form, turn that notification bell on, but also follow along in audio form where it's the same show, both in audio and video. So that's all I have for you here today on this live edition of Locked On Ravens. Again, we'll be back here tomorrow at 6 a.m. Eastern time, breaking down Lamar Jackson's extremely strong message for John Harbaugh and this Ravens team. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.